So we're going to have a wee chat now with Paidi McNichol from the Save Lough campaign. You know, here in the occupied O'Shea, Northern Ireland, the 6 counties, that Lough Neagh, our beautiful jewel, sitting in the middle of it, is become an environmental catastrophe. It's not unfair to use that word. It's not an exaggeration to use that word. So at the weekend, we had a Save the Lough campaign down at Oxford Island over the weekend, and Paidi organised the whole thing, and we had great speakers, and it was called the Lough Neagh Film Festival, and I was fortunate enough to be asked to sing some songs to close the thing out on the Sunday, and I also got to do in conversation with a journalist called Tommy Green, who has a great book coming out next month, all about the Lough, the state it's in and how it got there, and very much so an investigative expose, naming names, kicking ass, all that stuff. So I'm going to talk to Paidi about the whole weekend, and then also about next weekend, next Sunday, the 17th of May. We've got the Save the Lough campaign. We've got a protest leaving from the battery in Ardboe, going to Ardboe Cross. And we hope to have as many people out for that as possible. It would be great to see you there. I'll be there on the Sunday. And it's sort of replicating the anti-lignite marches, which took place in the 80s and were successful. They actually managed to get the lignite mining banned, which would have been a catastrophe for the area, and the immediate area, and further afield, the whole Lough would have been affected by it. But yeah, so here we go. We're going to have a wee chat with Paidi now. I've already done the introduction, so there's no need for that. So Paidi, welcome to the podcast. Thank you for joining me.
Thanks for having me,
No
Andy.
worries. So Paidi, we were talking, I've already introduced my guests, but we can go into it a bit more, obviously. You are one of the lead organisers of the Save the Lough campaign, and at the weekend down here in Oxford Island in Lurgan, we had, you organised with others, but you were the main guy, obviously, the Save the Lough, and we called it the Film Festival. Do you want to explain what that was about first?
Yeah, absolutely. Well, we decided, we held actually down in Oxford Island a few years ago a very successful art exhibition, Nature's Revolt, and we didn't expect the numbers we got then, and so we had this idea just sitting in our heads for quite a while, along with Paidi Cairns and other members of the Save Lough Neagh campaign, of doing a film festival, because, despite how terrible the Lough Neagh crisis is, there's been just an eruption of artistic talent covering it. So there's actually been some good in response to the crisis and the badness that we see on our doorsteps around the Lough. A lot of great short films, popping up, a lot of great documentaries. And so we thought it'd be good to hold a film festival that sort of brings some of these to light, that also just tries to raise awareness of the of the actual issues that these short films are pointing at, but also doubles as a conference to help us to build the campaign and organize on these issues.
Yeah. And do you want to tell our viewers and listeners who attended at the weekend?
Yeah, so I've actually got one of the leaflets
There
we
we go.
had at the weekend there. And we had a pretty packed schedule. The first time we've ever done anything like this, especially around the Lough Shore. And we started off with archival footage of the Lough. There was Brona McIntasney, Northern Ireland Screen, and it was great to see old footage of fishermen and swimmers and antics on the Lough Shore in the years gone by, followed by a short film called The Banfoot Ferry by a local filmmaker called Colin Laverty. Yep. It was brilliant. I think everybody really enjoyed that. We had campaigners down from the South Derry shore of the Lough who were performing a jig and a dance, and it was a good wee intermission.
That was lovely.
And then we had fantastic data centres discussion from Derry to Dundalk, different activists who are campaigning against data centres and the how much they suck up our energy on this island. So that was a fantastic discussion there. We had Pat Brody, James Renahan from PVP Dundalk, and Louise from Save the Moat, and Ruthie Norton from Lurgan chairing. And then we had yourself, Andy. We had in conversation with journalist Tommy Green, and Tommy's just been such an important facet of the campaign over the years. Like due to his investigative journalism and the great journalism from others, he's brought to light stuff that we otherwise would not have been able to uncover.
I really can't wait to read his book. I'm genuinely really excited about that. Everybody, it's available on Marion Press from July, so definitely go look for that. I'll maybe add a wee link to this afterwards. Sorry, carry on, Paidi.
That's a great shout, Andy. And yeah, it's called Troubled Waters, which is a great name. Very much looking forward to read that myself. And then we had a short film from River Action UK. They actually came over to support the campaign this weekend. They would be close with Chris Packham and Fergal Sharkey, Derry local up here.
Yep.
And they organised this massive March for Clean Water back in 2024 in London. So they had a short film called River Song, Ebb and Flow. And then we ended the first day on a panel on extractivism. We had Morella from Save Lough Neagh, who are currently undergoing a absolutely brutal, not so public inquiry. And I think it was important to highlight Save Lough Neagh at the end of the day, because not only are they fighting extraction in the form of mining in the Sperrins, just like we're fighting extraction in the form of sand in Lough Neagh, but they're having to use up annual leave and dedicate huge amounts of time just to combat the Dalradian and the establishment in the ongoing inquiry. So we thought it was important to highlight them, but also No Gas Caverns, who were a campaign up in Larne, and they actually were successful in stopping the extraction of gas in the gas caverns up there. And that was chaired by Friends of the Earth, who are always supportive of the campaign as well. So that was Saturday, which was a pretty packed schedule.
It's amazing. It's absolutely amazing that you managed to get all that in the one day, and such a and again, you've only touched on the first day, but then it's such a broad source of information. I imagine it was overwhelming for a lot of people. But sorry, carry on.
No, you're right, and I think actually that's been a learning experience. That next year we might rejig the schedule a wee bit so it's not information overload.
It's good though. It's brilliant. It needs to happen.
It needs to happen, you know, and I think if anything, it shows, it's very heartening to see just how much good there is out there, how many campaigners and how many good inspiring activists and all there is out there.
Just on that, one of the things that I picked up on was I didn't realise this. I remember whenever we had the last thing down at at Oxford Island a couple of years back, and I remember there being RTE cameras there, and I only found out on Sunday that they didn't actually broadcast anything from our event. They actually broadcast a Lough Neagh partnership promotional video instead.
That's right. And you want to know what adds salt to that wound, Andy? Paidi, Cairns and others' names were still in the credits, despite not being involved, or despite their footage not being shown. But
Jesus, that's amazing, isn't it? But it shows you, like as you say. But on a serious note, to look at that, you got the Dalriada mine protesters up in the Sperrins. You got the gas cavern protesters. And then you've got. I can't remember the lady's name that did the lovely painting of Liban.
That was Joe Fitzsimmons.
I followed her on Instagram. You should go and do that too, everybody, by the way. One of the things that I realised was, because, just to draw focus back to the RTE not showing any of the film that they made of us, people don't know that we're out there doing that. And they're up there in the Sperrins doing their thing, and they're over there doing their thing. And Joe's doing her paintings, and she finds out about Liban almost autonomously, not realising that there's a whole community out there of people that are into that thing, and then the environmentalism that inspired her to make her beautiful painting. And
absolutely,
because it's not being broadcast, it's not being published, it's not going out in the news channels, you know. And this weekend is a way to bring everybody together to realize that there is a community out there.
100%, Andy. Like that was very much one of the core tenets of Holden this weekend, is that, there are these events held often by funded by the government or councils, about environmental issues, but they'd cherry pick who gets on it. Often it's scientists, or often it's people who, are going to have a very clear and predictable line that's not going to be, anti-capitalist or revolutionary even. And I think that it was frustrating over the years just to see, like, I know even fishermen, Declan Coney, a fisherman yourself, and the amount of times that him or Mary, who'd be a swimmer and one of the main voices in our campaign, just, I'd have to drop whatever they're working on and go speak to UTV or go speak to a news outlet. And the news doesn't end up broadcasting what they're saying, because what they're saying gets at the government or gets at the core problems. And it was important to cut through that,
Well, it is, and I think from another perspective as well. Just, I know we're all on the same page, so there's no disagreement among any of us really that were in the room. Maybe one or two, but I did find it whenever I was talking with Tommy, and I joked at the end. Someone had asked a question about how do you, basically they were saying, how do you fix the problem but keep the jobs, that sort of thing. And I said, well, I could give you a Marxist economic answer to that.
Yeah.
And he went, oh, none of that, I'll shout, no, blah, 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 blah. I said, well, I go, okay, it's not the place for it, so I'm not going to go there. But we're going to go there, right? That, on the, it's that word you used, the revolutionary. There's nothing revolutionary about it. You get the BBC down, you get UTV down, you get RTE down, and you stand there and you go on about revolutionary economics and people power and communal coming together. God forbid you use the word socialist, Marxist, or communist. And I mean, you're just out of the equation. You're not getting your voice fucking heard. But we've done it your way. We've done it your way. We're doing it your way. And that's why we're here having this conversation. It's why we're so fucking desperate. It's why we can't drink our tap water. It's why our environment is being fucking devastated. And then as someone throws in a potential solution that might involve something this man said, all of a sudden your voice isn't heard, and you'll never be invited to those things again. You have to be a credentialed journalist, scientist, government person, social servant. And if you're not, forget about it.
Absolutely, Andy. And I think like the Lough Neagh crisis is just one of those things where it's so like cartoonishly bad and cartoonishly evil. Like we make the comparison about the Simpsons movie and the lock or the lake in Springfield going green with just one more barrel. And it's scary just how accurate that is to what's happened with Lough Neagh. And if not now, when? If not this unprecedented crisis, when can we start talking about system change? If pets being killed and the very, very serious and worrying details that are coming out and patterns that are emerging with serious health conditions. UTV covered even a potential cancer cluster on the Western Shore the other day. And I think, while these things can't be disproven, who's to say that anything should be off the table?
Absolutely.
And especially when, the problems all point to the one direction, which is capital and ownership and profit.
Well, that's the thing that it's. I was talking with a couple of activists out in the foyer after I was leaving with a chat with Tommy, because I had to run, and I was saying the point I always make, and because when I'm mindful when I'm talking to people, especially the older generation, because they've been a lot of them have been so propagandized, against anything socialist or Marxist or God forbid, that as soon as you say those words, they put up a guard, and you can literally see them repealing. They literally go backwards on you, and you can see their demeanor change. I do it all the time. I did it today with someone in the car. I swear to God.
Mhm.
And but so you have to try to avoid saying those things, but get your point across, which is fucking
Yeah,
pathetic when you think about it. But
it
but
is.
I was saying to the guys out in the foyer, Moy Park being the big bad thing in the room that everyone knows because it's the biggest employer in the area. The choices on one hand is we go to Moy Park as a community and we say, right, listen, you have to give us 2% of your £196 million worth of profit you made last year. We're going to employ 50 people and we're going to clean all that up before it gets into the water table. For example, it's not the only solution. Obviously, I'm just being I'm just trying to make a point. Well, they will move that. If we did that, they'll move that factory to Poland in the morning. Straight away. They'll go, oh no, we will move this to keep that 1%. Right? So then our other option is we let you degrade our environment until even you can't use it, at which point you will move the factory to fucking Poland. So we're fucked if we do and we're fucked if we don't. And if we bring along a Marxist or socialist or some other solution, automatically you're some
Yeah,
sort of a mad revolutionary blue haired extremist that doesn't deserve the time of day.
yeah, yeah. Yeah, very well said, Andy. And I think, Moy Park being the first multi-billion-pound company in the north,
Yeah.
and yet it was horrible over COVID. They actually had it was one of the hotspots of COVID. Just the conditions the workers are in. A lot of the workers are paid below minimum wage. There's been so many scandals over the years with Moy Park. But workers have even died in the factory during COVID and other times just due to the labor practices.
Wow.
So it's quite incredible that.
Yeah.
Well, actually, it is a perfect example to be like this. Moy Park is a reason and is something we should point towards and say this multi-billion-pound factory, it should not be operating. Because the thing is, even though it is employing quite a few people, they're not giving them good wages. And that money is not being kept here. It is going straight back to where the parent company's from,
Yeah.
Brazil, America.
Yeah.
And so it's a trick,
It is a trick. Yeah.
bring jobs, but at what cost,
Yeah. Well, if it's going, well, and it's another thing I say, and I do like to say this to people as well, where I say, if I have a choice between your job and my literal drinking water, I know
Yeah,
I don't want to have to make. I mean, we don't have to make that decision. It's a false dichotomy. But if you force me to make that choice, I know where I'm going with this. We need our
yeah.
environment. We need our air. We need our water. Without these things, there's no life. So you're asking me to choose between my life and your job. We don't have to. But if you're making me, I know what I'm doing.
Yeah. I mean, you're getting to the core tenet of solidarity
Yeah.
there. And I think like, just to tie it back to, especially when you're trying to relate to some of the ones who've been around a lot longer than me in this locality. That's why we're holding this march this Sunday,
Yep.
which is the March for Lough
Yep.
Neagh. We're assembling at 12 noon at the Battery Harbour on the Western Shore, which is very close to Ardboe, and then we're going to be marching to the Ardboe High Cross. But when you talk to anybody around here, and I think the same is similar with the civil rights movement and the Long March, and from Belfast to Derry. But when you talk about 1986, it actually still is in the minds of a lot of people
Yeah.
on the shores of Lough Neagh that in 1986, 3,000 people marched against the mining of lignite in the area. And this is after people were being bribed by BP
Yeah.
to, we'll let us drill a hole in your ground to see if there's lignite under it, and we'll give you thousands of pounds. And that was big money back in the day, of course. But talking to people and them saying like, yeah, we marched and we got in our thousands and we said no. And even though the SDLP was on the side of the mining and the Tories were on the side of the mining, the people, they didn't listen to the politicians who were telling them, oh, this is actually good for your community. They were like, no, we can see through this. We know what BP is going to do to our community. And they defeated BP. They actually managed to stop the plans. And, some people would call them revolutionaries or socialists or
Yeah.
communists in the way that they, just took to the streets against
Yeah.
the government and said, you know what? you big corporations, you're not welcome here. But relating those sort of historical moments to people has been quite helpful
Yeah.
in getting people to realize that, you know, we don't have to look that to other areas often for revolutionary struggles.
Yeah.
There's quite a lot on our doorstep, including in Lurgan and Newry in the past, and Armagh
Yeah.
across the north and south.
Absolutely, and it has to. I mean, it has to happen because, quite clearly, the another point that was touched upon over the weekend, and just to bring us up to the point as you rightly mentioned, so that we'll be finishing on there's a march at the weekend from Ardboe, but bringing us up to that, a large part of the problem is the fragmentation of, again, back to what we started with. The guys up in the Sperrins fighting against the gold mine, and the guys against the gas caverns in Belfast Lough, where everyone's fragmented. No one knows what's going on,
Yeah.
and no one realizes that there are people all over the country fighting these solo fights and these solo battles. And hopefully this march on Sunday is going to bring a lot of the same groups together. I sort of have that sense that this is going to be hopefully a little watershed moment, to use a bad analogy. But so the lignite marches, the anti-lignite marches that happened in 1986 also happened in the backdrop of the Troubles, which was phenomenal. And that everyone
Absolutely.
came together cross community and chased BP, and you know full well that they didn't go away. They're just sort of waiting for everyone to
Yeah.
forget to come back. You know
Waiting.
that they don't go away. So
100%.
you need to keep your wits about you with that sort of stuff. But that march that happened in 1986, is this the anniversary of that? No.
Yeah, so it was this year, but it was at winter
Yes.
time, and we were
Aye.
we were debating
Yeah.
to have it in winter, and we're like,
Yeah.
no, we've actually timed it with the algae bloom. So
Okay.
this is now our fourth year of algae blooms engulfing the loch, and it's usually the time when it really just starts to exponentially explode on our shores. And May time especially is when it's raising its head.
Yeah.
So we have a pretty bad bloom at the moment at Ballyronan. There was Craigavon Lakes beside you, Andy.
Yep.
Like, it was bright cyan blue over the weekend. So we've timed it to instead be with the algae bloom, but it is the 40th year
Yeah.
anniversary that we do wish to commemorate as
Fair
well.
enough. And do you get a sense that there's going to be a lot of the original marchers?
Yeah, so we actually have a few of the banners from the original march.
Yes, saw that on Sunday. It was beautiful.
No, like, it's beautiful to come across these, and maybe this is the museum worker in me coming out, but like, it's beautiful to come across these old artifacts, you know. And I guess they're not that old; it's only 1986. But Pat Grimes was one of the organisers, along with Niall Fitzduff, in 1986, and Pat actually had these banners sitting in his garage untouched for 40 years. And it was wonderful just to get them unfurled. And we're going to be repairing them,
Right.
get them out to the march this Sunday. And also reminding people that if we've done this once, we can do this again. We can stand against extractivism and come together as a community, because, as you rightfully touch on, there's a lot of people and there's a lot of different angles with the Lough Neagh situation. You know, NI water, we've got sand dredging, we've got big farming and pollution. There's all these things, and you've got people fighting with each other. Like, no, it's the sand dredging, no, it's the farming. But actually, all these things are symptoms of a wider problem, which is the system and putting profit and greed in front of everything. And more often than not, it all points back to Stormont and our government policy as
But
well.
that suits the extractors and the people that are making
Yeah,
their money in
100%.
within economics. We have a thing called externalities, and the externalities that aren't put onto the price are taken from the profit. The externality, they
Yeah,
get to dump their effluent in the water. They don't pay for that. It's free. Da, 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 da.
that's
So
right. That's right.
all these
Absolutely.
externalities are just being used, and then we're divided among ourselves, arguing about whether it's the eel fishermen or the
Yeah,
extractors or the stand extractors. The reality is everybody's contributing in their own way.
yeah,
We know who's the most to blame, and so long as we're divided, arguing with each other,
yeah,
just as you rightly pointed out, just arguing about just the small. What is it? The banality of I can't remember the phrase. It's left me, but yeah. So just on to Stormont, I did a podcast a couple of years ago whenever Andrew Muir got appointed, and I
Mhm.
literally swear to God, I went into it blind. I says, I'm just going to
Yeah.
do a deep dive, a wee investigation into what I can see about him, his party, his politics, his party's politics, and where they're coming from. And the
Mhm.
podcast is up on where you get your podcast. If you go down, you'll find it. And I declared the day he got elected, the day after he got elected, this man is not going to fix this problem. He's not interested. He's incapable. His politics won't allow him. His beliefs won't allow him. He can't do it. Even if with the
Mhm.
greatest will in the world, he's not interested.
Yeah. Yeah. I think it's a, he may consider himself an environmentalist, but it actually, Andrew Muir, it's perfect that he's in there at the
Yes,
moment because it actually exposes the fact that reform of the system and this liberal mentality that, oh, we can have environmentalism under capitalism. Well, he's actually exposed that we
we can't.
can't. What's Andrew Muir done so far? A very weak Lough Neagh action plan with just education and just a little bit of a slap on, like a tiny wee slap on the wrist for repeat polluters and stuff. But his main thing is putting money towards private
Yes,
solutions to the loch, and that what I mean. It is none of those solutions have been tested, or scientists have raised the alarm that they may work on a pond, but they're not going to work on the largest freshwater lake on these
but
islands.
yeah,
And
but those solutions that they put forward, they don't. They never say. I've noticed this when any of the meetings that I've been at. There was at a couple up in Ballyroan, uh,
mhm,
once a couple of times up at the Seamus Heaney place. Um,
yeah,
they you always get some dude steps up. We've got this new technology shooting lasers into thing, doing it. We're going to do this, but no one says let's stop what we're doing and we'll do this as well. They
yeah,
they
yeah,
always go, let we will continue doing what we're doing and we will do this as
exactly,
well. And we're sitting here going,
exactly.
excuse me, mate, we've just been talking for 2 hours about shit getting pumped into our
That's
drinking
right.
water. And we know that's the fucking problem. Then you come
Absolutely.
along with a fucking
Yes.
laser, going to be paid for about £2 million of public money. Ah, does my head in.
I know. No, but you're absolutely right there because it's like we're not as a campaign, we're a grassroots campaign, the Save Lough Neagh campaign. We're all volunteers. We'll never be an NGO. Never will we get paid for any of the work that we're doing. But what that means is that is that we have with our resources and with people power, we have goals that we're going to fight for. There's no point fighting for what the government's already doing, which is throwing money at private solutions. And it's not that, inherently there shouldn't be any money going towards
No,
any of these solutions, but it's the fact that we need to get at the core root of the problem, which is there's still pollution flowing, millions of tons of pollution from NI water, millions of tons of pollution from the factory farms and the big corporations around the loch flowing into the loch every single year. And what good is putting a bandage over it while the wound is still being cut?
but that is the liberal capitalist solution.
Absolutely.
That is what it
Yeah.
is. That's the only thing that's what they have to offer. And by the way, while they're offering £2 million or whatever it was for fucking lasers, they're talking about building
Yeah.
more battery farms
Factory
up
farms.
on the Derry shore.
Absolutely. Yeah. That's on 100%. We've got a big one coming up on going through our council in
Yeah,
Matterfelt, and then Armagh, not too
yeah,
far from the shore down there as well, and it's giant. So the fact that on one hand, these massive factory farms, which let's also be honest that these are not good, like for small farmers, and there's this idea that farming is a homogenous
yeah,
group, but actually there's a massive difference between your average small farmer and the way farming's being done
yeah,
in our heritage and in our past, and the big factory farms that are actually owned by American and Brazilian companies.
yeah.
Um, so we really are trying to get, and there's a chance, we don't know if it's going to happen, but there's a chance there's going to be a small farmer rally alongside the march this Sunday.
Okay.
And it would be great to have them also, be opposed to the factory farms, because factory farms will just swallow
They
up
will swallow them up
small
100%. Yeah,
100%.
there's
And
absolutely no doubt about it. The trajectory that we're on with our farming and as
yeah,
a country, those guys aren't going to
yeah,
exist in 10 years. And much
no,
like the
absolutely,
fishermen don't exist now. Declan, Declan
100%.
Coney, he said on Sunday, and it blew my mind. Back when he was a kid in the 80s, there was 400 to 500 fishermen on the loch. Today, there's 10.
Yeah,
That
yeah.
just
No, it's really heartbreaking.
that destroyed me. I couldn't believe that number.
On that point, Andy, I just want to bring up, you just brought that up, that I there was also a fantastic short film by
Yeah,
Marie-Therese called The
yeah,
Silvering, or sorry, Silvering, but it touched on that topic so beautifully over the
yeah.
weekend, and just how heartbreaking it is what's happened
I
to
must admit,
the livelihoods of fishermen.
actually, a little tear came up whenever it was
Yeah.
watching that. It was stunning. Yeah, Mary Teresa's film. I can't wait to see it. She messages me today because I'm an extra in the background, and she asked me to come down.
Are
Yeah,
you?
to do.
Love
And
that.
our Lily and Summer, Janie, sorry, the same. So she messaged me today to come down for some. I don't know what the technical term was. Some more reshoots, probably. I don't know, but yeah. So I'll be doing that next week. But that film was gorgeous. It
That was
did bring a
beautiful.
tear to my
Beautifully
eye,
shot.
and I was mindful also whenever Declan was talking about it. He was very emotional watching that film.
Yeah,
Yeah, and I'm sure. I mean,
definitely.
for people like him who are still trying to scrape a living off that lock, it
Yeah.
must be nearly impossible. You know,
Absolutely. And I think that the fact he's powering on, we really hope to get a good turnout this Sunday, because it's, we've done two marches up in Belfast, but this is actually the first march for Lough
yeah.
Neagh on the Lough Shore. Well, actually, Bernadette reminded us the other day that there was the one in 1986, but there was also the one in 1969 and 1970.
Yes.
So it isn't the first one ever, but it's the first one in quite a
Yeah.
while, and hopefully we'll get some of that spirit of resistance and a desire for change back.
That would be fantastic. So we'll wrap this up. Do you want to just remind everybody, and we'll call it a day? What's happening?
Absolutely. Yeah, that sounds great, Andy. So at 12 o'clock, we'll be assembling at the Battery Harbour, and we'll be marching towards the Ardboe High Cross. As well as that, there's going to be a boat rally. So anybody with boats, please, boats are going to be leaving at the same time, 12:30, and going to the Ardboe High Cross. There was a boat rally back in 1986. We hope to see a good one at the one this year, fighting for our lock. And there's also going to be a paddle out protest at the end, Surfers Against Sewage and other swimmers are going to be doing a bit of a paddle out. And then potentially others will be joining us too, but we're really hoping that to see schools and especially the younger generation
That'll be good.
come out this Sunday. So please come out and support the fishermen, the swimmers, everybody that's been affected by this crisis. And together, I think we can, make it clear that we're not happy with the status quo. Massive change needs to happen, and Stormont, if Stormont deserves to exist, which personally I don't think, I think it's shown it's not fit for purpose, but it has to get its priorities right and put our planet before profit.
Absolutely. That's brilliant. That's it. Perfect. So, Paidi McNichol, Save Lough Neagh campaign. Thank you so much, and we'll see you on Sunday.
Great, Andy. Thanks for
Thank
having
you,
me.
man. Bye.